All right, so are you ready to dive into some pretty deep stuff today? Because you shared this lecture with us by Neville Goddard, and it's all about the power of imagination.
And we're going to kind of unpack all of that, looking at how our thoughts, even the ones we don't really pay attention to, can shape our lives, maybe
Yeah.
in ways that we don't expect.
Yeah, it is. It's really wild. When I first heard about Neville Goddard, I thought, oh, okay, another, mystic from the last century.
Right.
But then I started reading his work, and wow, this guy was onto something.
He really was. And ahead of his time, talking about, things like the law of attraction way back when and the power of the subconscious.
And today we're going to zero in on this idea that imagining is actually creating reality. We're even going to talk about a story about your friend Bob,
Right.
who kind of unknowingly used this power to completely change his career.
Yeah, it's a great story to really illustrate this idea of the imaginal act.
Okay, imaginal act, it sounds a little, I don't know, mystical.
Right.
Can you kind of break that down for us? What
Yeah.
exactly does that mean?
Sure, yeah. It sounds a little out there, but it's actually a pretty simple concept. Goddard believed that every single thing that happens in our world is caused by something we imagine, whether we meant to or not.
Okay.
It's like planting a seed in your mind that eventually grows into something real in the physical world.
So does that mean if I just spend all day dreaming about winning the lottery that I'll win?
Well, not quite. It's
Uh-huh.
not just about wishing for things,
Right.
It's about understanding the deeper meaning behind what you're imagining caught on. Goddard called that the implication.
Okay.
So think of it like this. If you imagine yourself confidently giving a presentation at work, the implication of that is that you are a capable and confident person.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
So how does your friend Bob's story fit into all of this? You mentioned he had a career change.
He did a big one, yeah. So Bob was working at RCA, and he was doing pretty well from what anyone could tell. Good sales record content, but then out of nowhere he gets laid off.
Wow, that's got to be a shock.
Big show.
Where does the imagination part come in?
Right, so Bob told Goddard about this horrible commute he had on the Santa Ana freeway, bumper-to-bumper traffic every single day.
Oh, yeah, I know that freeway.
Oh, yeah, and he would daydream about turning off towards downtown LA instead of continuing on to RCA.
So he's essentially picturing himself not going to work.
Exactly, and the implication of that is that he doesn't work there anymore.
Hold on. Are we saying that Bob's daydreams somehow caused him to get laid off?
It's easy to just write it off as a coincidence.
Yeah.
But Goddard was convinced that what we see happening around us is actually the result of what's happening inside of us, our thoughts and imaginings.
Yeah.
He compared it to a movie projector. The film is the imaginal act, and what we see projected on the screen is our reality.
I see. So the film in Bob's case was him driving downtown and then losing his job was what happened on the screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads us to a question that your friend asked, and that was, do we have to consciously decide every single thing we imagine, or can we do it without even realizing it?
That's a really good question because, are we just shaping our reality with our thoughts without even knowing it?
Absolutely. Think about it. We're always imagining something, whether it's intentional daydreaming or just our mind wandering.
Right.
And all those imaginings, big or small, are having an effect on the world around us.
Wow.
What are those thoughts that you find yourself thinking over and over again?
Yeah.
What about those daydreams that keep popping up? They might be telling you something about the reality you're creating for yourself, even if you don't realize it.
It's incredible. It's empowering. And it's a little scary to think that we have that much influence over our lives.
It is.
If we're constantly shaping our reality with our thoughts, what does that tell us about, everything?
It really does make you question everything, doesn't it?
Right.
And for Goddard, this wasn't just some philosophical idea. This was at the core of his spiritual beliefs. He actually believed that this power of imagination is the same power that Christ represents within us.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah,
So we're going there.
we're going there. Yeah, it's a powerful concept, isn't it? He believed that the true Christ isn't some historical figure, but a symbol of this creative force that's inside every one of us.
So instead of seeking this external savior, we need to learn how to tap into that power within.
Exactly. And he saw the Bible as an allegory, full of stories that kind of illustrate this concept.
Okay.
Think about David and Goliath. David went up against this giant with nothing but a slingshot and his belief in himself,
Right.
in his own power.
Right.
And Goddard saw that as a metaphor for the triumph of imagination over what seems impossible.
I like that interpretation. It's a good reminder that maybe we limit ourselves more than we need to.
Oh, yeah.
If this incredible power is inside us, how do we actually use it?
Yeah.
What's the secret to harnessing this inner Christ?
Right. Well, he talked a lot about dreaming nobly, which might sound a little cheesy, but it's really about using our imagination for good, to create something positive in our lives. And he emphasized focusing on how it would feel if your dream was already reality instead of getting caught up in the how of getting there.
So like if I'm picturing myself living in my dream home, I should try to feel the joy and gratitude as if I was already there.
Yes, exactly. Embody the feeling of your wish fulfilled instead of dwelling on the fact that you don't have it yet.
Okay.
And Goddard himself had a pretty powerful story about how he used this, to create a better career path.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
So Goddard actually got fired from a job.
Sounds familiar, kind of like Bob.
Exactly. But instead of focusing on the negative, he used it as an opportunity for change.
Okay.
He started imagining himself working for himself, being his own boss.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, that's exactly what happened. He became a successful writer and lecturer, all because he dared to imagine a different path.
That's really inspiring. It shows that even when things feel like they're falling apart, you can use your imagination to see a better future and actually make it happen.
Absolutely. And there's another story that the Goddard shared about the poet William Butler Yeats.
Okay.
Yeats apparently appeared to a friend who was hundreds of miles away, seemingly just through the intensity of his imagination.
Wait, are you saying that he, teleported himself using his mind?
That's how it seemed to his friend.
Whoa.
Yeats didn't consciously remember it happening, but it just highlights the power of focused thought and how our imagination can reach way beyond, our physical limitations.
That's crazy. So if everyone is kind of shaping their own reality with their thoughts, how do we explain the shared experiences that we have with other people? It's not like we all just live in our own little bubbles.
Right. That's where things get even more mind-bending. Goddard believed that, in a sense, everyone that we encounter is like an actor playing a role in bringing our imaginings to life.
So you're saying other people are like characters in a movie that we're writing and directing with our minds.
It's not about controlling or manipulating people.
Right.
It's more about understanding that we're all interconnected and influencing each other's experiences in ways that we may never fully grasp.
So if I imagine myself, having a loving and supportive partner, the people I meet could be drawn into that story somehow.
Exactly. When we shift our inner world, it creates a ripple effect that touches everyone around us.
Wow.
Goddard said it like this: everyone is an agent for you.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all this ties together. It's like we're all participating in this huge cosmic dance, co-creating our reality through our collective thoughts and imagination.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the difference between internal and external motion.
Oh, right. You mentioned that before. Can you run me what that's all about?
So for Goddard, it was all about understanding what's cause and what's effect.
Okay.
Internal motion, meaning our thoughts, feelings, the things that we imagine, that's the cause that sets everything in motion. The things that happen around us, the external motion, that's just the effect.
So the key to lasting change is to start by working on our inner world.
Exactly. It's like rewriting the script of a movie. If you want a different ending, you need to start by changing the story.
I love that analogy. That makes so much sense.
And that's what's so empowering about Goddard's teachings. We aren't just victims of circumstance.
Right.
We have way more power than we think to create our own destiny. It all starts with understanding the power of imagination.
Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? We should be asking, what am I creating? What am I imagining into being?
Exactly. It all comes down to taking responsibility for the world that we're creating, both individually and collectively.
It's like we're walking around with this, this superpower inside us.
Right.
But most of us have no clue how to even turn it on.
It really is like having a magic wand and not realizing you can use it to, make your dreams come true.
But the good news is once you understand it, you can start to actually use it.
You can.
Create a life that you actually want.
Exactly. And it's not just about material things or achieving goals in the outside world.
Right.
It's about creating a richer, more meaningful life on the inside too.
Like using your imagination to maybe let go of old beliefs that are holding you back.
Yeah.
Or to heal from, emotional wounds, or even to connect with something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless. It's all about understanding that your mind is powerful enough to shape your reality.
This is also inspiring. It makes me wonder about the ethical side of things. If we can imagine anything into being, doesn't that come with a lot of responsibility?
It does, and Goddard did talk about that. He stressed the importance of using this power for good, for creating things that are in harmony with the well-being of everyone.
So it's not about using this power to get ahead at the expense of others or to manipulate people into doing what you want.
Definitely not for Goddard. Real power came from aligning your desires with a higher purpose. using your imagination to create a world that's more loving, more compassionate, and more just for everyone.
That's a beautiful vision. And it makes me think about something you mentioned earlier, the promise. This idea that, like, our desires will be fulfilled, our imaginings will become our reality. It sounds almost too good to be true.
It's a concept that goes to the very heart of Goddard's teachings.
Yeah.
This promise is a spiritual principle that goes beyond what we can see and touch, what our rational minds can even grasp.
So it's not about hoping or wishing for things, but having this deep inner knowing that it's already happened.
Yeah, it's a huge shift in perspective. Instead of feeling a sense of lack or longing, you move into a feeling of gratitude and fulfillment.
But if the promise is unconditional, does that mean we don't have to do anything? Can we just sit back and wait for our dreams to, like, magically show up?
Well, it's not about passive waiting. It's about becoming an active participant in the unfolding of your reality. Taking the steps, making the choices that are aligned with what you're imagining.
So it's like a collaboration.
Yeah.
We're using our imagination as like the blueprint, and then we're taking action to bring it to life.
Exactly. It's about understanding that we have a role to play in this creative process, even when it comes to, like, seemingly impossible dreams.
It suggests that we have a lot more influence over our lives than we realize. But how do we know this promise is real? Is there any evidence to support it?
Well, that's where things get a little tricky for Goddard. The proof was in the pudding. He encouraged people to test these principles in their own lives and see what happened.
Right.
It's not about blind faith. It's about experimenting, discovering what works for you.
I love that approach. It's not about dogma or, like, rigid rules. It's about empowering people to kind of discover their own truth.
That's the beauty of Goddard's teachings. They're not about imposing beliefs. They're a framework for exploration and self-discovery.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of Goddard's work.
There's always more to uncover, but hopefully this gives you a good starting point for understanding the power of imagination.
And what's most important is that we actually put these ideas into practice in our lives.
Yeah, it's not enough to just understand these concepts intellectually. We need to actually live them, to embody them in our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions.
So to our listener, what will you imagine into being tonight? What kind of reality will you create?
And remember, pay attention to those moments when your mind is wandering. You might be surprised by what you find yourself imagining into existence. Keep dreaming big, keep using your imagination, and trust in the power of your own mind to create a life beyond your wildest dreams.
And as Neville Goddard himself said, the world is yourself pushed out. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Until next time.